Hello, and welcome to coverage of the Cycorp Swiss Open for the custom standard format. I'm Caillou, and today we're going to be watching the round 1 match between FrogMaker on green-black Enchantocrats versus Zarepath, who is on blue-black Rack. So basically how this is going to work is FrogMaker's deck is a kind of like grindy deck. It uses lots of creatures that can be sacked for value, and has like a good not recursive, but then good card flow and all of that, and aims to either close out the game by having overwhelming value, or it has an infinite combo with Whoopip Wanderer and Return Bokor. Essentially, those two cards along with a sack outlet allows you to go infinite and potentially kill your opponent. On the other side of the table, Zarepath's deck is also, I think, very grindy, but has a lot more controlling rather than mid-range elements. It's running a lot of removal, it has a lot of permission pieces, and the goal of it is basically to empty your opponent's hand and then use a Shrieking Affliction, which is basically the titular card because it's referring to the cannon card, the Rack, of which it is essentially a riff on. Essentially, it does 3 damage to an opponent if an opponent has 1 or less cards in their hand at the start of their turn. So you use a bunch of cards that do either mass discard, and then you recoup it by having card advantage engines like Lazaire's Altar. So I think in this matchup it really comes down to who can land their haymakers first, because both decks are similarly grindy, they just need to get going. So in FrogMaker's case, probably needs to have the combo or needs to have some really strong early plays. And on Zarepath's end, probably needs to have an early Shrieking Affliction into just continuous discard to keep FrogMaker off of any relevant pieces. So let's get into it. So both players keeping at 6. Zarepath bottoms a Spell Pierce, and FrogMaker bottoms an Epic of Jabaya, which is kind of ironic because I think if each player knew each other's hand, they would have kept those cards. Zarepath the Spell Pierce to be able to deal with the turn 2 Boiling Outflow, and FrogMaker would keep Epic of Jabaya to be able to kill these Corporate Confidants because they're artifact creatures. So yeah, kind of ironic bottoms from both players. Still really solid hands. I think turn 2 Corporate Confidant is a really aggressive line for Zarepath to take, and this would be hard for FrogMaker to respond to. FrogMaker could, of course, just play Blood Knight Countess and trade with that, or just play Boiling Outflow and then can start trading with 1/1 tokens to turn off or to kill Corporate Confidant. The Arcologize here doesn't have a good target, but yeah. So FrogMaker going to tap out for Boiling Outflow. Unfortunately, it doesn't create a token immediately, so this Corporate Confidant will get in for 3 right here. And Zarepath has out-of-date mana up to be able to kill Blood Knight Countess, which is FrogMaker's only play next turn. Or can honestly banish it, because I don't know how many other sack outlets FrogMaker has in the deck, and that puts FrogMaker off the infinite combo in that case. But yeah, Zarepath swinging for 3, and then playing another Corporate Confidant. Definitely a dicey position, though, with this Boiling Outflow. FrogMaker, meanwhile, only play that they can do is play Blood Knight Countess. They're close to 5 mana, so then Acidic Slime is just pretty good in this matchup because, again, destroy target artifact. Corporate Confidant is an artifact. Of course, you can also just start taking out Zarepath's lands and then just try to put Zarepath off being able to cast any spells. And this is a good place. I think if you're FrogMaker, you don't mind trading with the Confidants here. But yeah, Zarepath does get to draw 2 cards here because both of the Corporate Confidants are online. Draws into a land and a Masked Saboteur. This is one of the key cards of Zarepath's deck, and something we haven't seen play in any other deck before. Essentially, it punishes your opponent for tapping out by becoming unblockable as long as they're tapped out, basically. And on combat damage, it basically allows you to do hand attack which is insane. Like repeatable like hand attack with that kind of tempo is super strong. Of course, it doesn't make them discard it; it causes them to upload it, so they can pay 2 with sorcery speed to put it back into their hand. But still, as a tempo card, Mask Saboteur is insane because either your opponent is forced to hold up 1 mana, or like essentially pay, quote unquote pay 1 by not tapping out fully, in order to be able to block it, or they just have to start losing cards left and right. So on upkeep, Zarepath is going to out of date the Blood Knight Countess. I think in response to the Boiling Outflow trigger. The reason for this is that so that FrogMaker can't sack 1 elemental in order to pump Blood Knight Countess, and then that would trigger Morbid, allowing Blood Knight Countess to sack another creature to make Blood Knight Countess indestructible. But yeah, so FrogMaker just has to let Blood Knight Countess die. Meanwhile, I think not attacking with the Corporate Confidants kind of makes sense. Zarepath has Banish, which functions as a wipe versus the elemental tokens, and as long as FrogMaker is pinging themselves, or like not as long as, because Zarepath will take 4 damage next turn, but FrogMaker pinging themselves for 1 here means that Zarepath gets 2 more draws with the Corporate Confidants next turn, instead of trading them with 1/1s, which isn't where you want to be. Meanwhile, top decking FrogMaker, top decking to Torn Knight, that is another sack outlet. Interesting. It's also a card that I don't think I've seen played anywhere else, but it's a reasonably good card. It's going to tap to Arcologize. Can't do that because Corporate Confidant is a creature. This is a mistake that FrogMaker's made in previous games, unfortunately. But yeah, even though it is an artifact, Arcologize says non-creature. So probably instead just has to tap out for Thorn Knight. It's going to Arcologize the island and pass? That's really bad. That's really bad because that doesn't put Zarepath off. Zarepath has 3 blue-black lands. Like, that is not going to affect Zarepath's mana in any way. Like, yeah, I think that was a huge punt from FrogMaker. Should have just taken back the Arcologize and played Thorn Knight instead. Or like I think even Arcologize on your own Boiling Outflow would be better than Arcologizing Zarepath, because Arcologize on Boiling Outflow gives you access to both of your 5-drops next turn, regardless of whether or not you hit a land. Arcologize on Zarepath's Island does literally nothing. Especially with Zarepath top decking so many lands. Oh my god. Zarepath does have like a reasonably strong board, but yeah, crazy. And like, see, maybe FrogMaker was thinking, hey, I should keep a land up for Mask Saboteur, but then like Thorn Knight is 3 mana, so you could still keep a land up and then make it so that you could block Mask Saboteur. Unfortunately, Zarepath, yeah, is just going to banish the 2 elemental tokens and then swing out for a whopping 8 damage, and also gets to essentially Mind Crush FrogMaker here. Just grab one of their cards. If you're Zarepath, do you just grab the Thorn Knight to put FrogMaker off a blocker if they don't hit a land? Because I think you do, because I think you just win next turn. Or not just win, because FrogMaker will get a single elemental token. But I think it's yeah, it's gonna take Thorn Knight. Just go for the aggressive play, and basically force FrogMaker to hit a land. If not, Zarepath takes it all. FrogMaker going down to 6 life. Epic of Jobaya. Interesting. So this allows Epic of Jobaya X equals 1 can kill a Corporate Confidant. Could also search for a land. But yeah, Epic of Jobaya X equals 1, kill a Corporate Confidant, still has a land untapped, so can block Mask Saboteur, and then we'll take 3 from the Corporate Confidant, but it probably is hoping to hit Acidic Slime next turn to be able to kill Corporate Confidant on the crackback. So yeah, that was definitely a strong top deck. Meanwhile, still has Corporate Confidants are going to draw, out of date. Zarepath is like this close to being able to kill FrogMaker here. If FrogMaker hadn't top decked, yeah, just gonna out of date the elemental. FrogMaker does just die here because Zarepath swings for 5, and on FrogMaker's upkeep, FrogMaker has to pay 1 to Boiling Outflow, and that's it. Yeah, we're going to game 2. So let's look at each player's sideboard and see what they could bring to the table. So Zarepath's end has Pithing Needle to potentially be able to turn off one of the sack outlet cards. For example, like naming the Vampire or Torn Knight. We can put FrogMaker off of being able to just like Aristocrat stuff, especially since it's a turn 1 play. Of course, FrogMaker does have more than one Aristocrat, but it's still a strong card to have. Essence Scatter and Negate. So I guess FrogMaker does have like some strong non-creature cards, but I think the scariest parts are the creatures. So maybe Essence Scatter. I think Out of Date is coming in for sure. I don't know what the misclick is in here for. I guess it's like instant speed Grave Hate, so it's good versus some decks. It actually is. Never mind. It is good versus. FrogMaker because you can do it in response to Return Bokor. Because Return Bokor says when this creature dies, you return it to your hand. I believe that in response to that, you can misclick because it hits the graveyard for before it goes back to hand. So you can misclick it and then shuffle it back into the library before it returns to hand. I'm not sure if that's how that interaction works, but if so, that is combo protection. But I think lots of Zarepath's sideboard just seems to be like solid value cards. I don't know what Zarepath will bring in, if I'm being entirely honest. I wish I had more of a read. But I think Zarepath could bring in like any and all of these cards, and I think they would do work against different angles of FrogMaker's deck. I think Banish is definitely strong because you want to exile FrogMaker's like big haymakers, especially because of the recursive elements of the deck. Don't know. I don't think hand attack is as good. Maybe a Despise, but I don't know. But yeah, those are my thoughts. I'm kind of scattered on it. Meanwhile, on FrogMaker's side, Woopip Bruiser. I think Stalking Spider is a really good card, just to be able to like flash block something. It also allows FrogMaker to like play around into speed removal and stuff, or like counter spells, forcing because if Zarepath taps out. Misclick, I don't think you want it in this matchup. Yeah, Out of Date is probably good. I don't know if Zarepath's like creatures are like impactful enough to want Out of Date, especially with like given how many like main deck removal cards FrogMaker technically has with like an artifact removal. Collapse the Pillars, Degradation, Epic of Jabaya, I think all do like solid work in Zarepath's deck. Zarepath's like big haymakers are all enchantments. Like Lazar's Altar, Shrieky Affliction, all of those are like scary cards that you can just like mass shoot down with Epic of Jabaya. So I think some of these 5 are coming in. And those are my predictions for sideboarding. Let's look at how game 2 looks. So Zarepath drawing a no-lander has 2 Shrieking Affliction, Corporate Confidant, and Lazar's Altar, but I think it's too much to keep. Meanwhile, FrogMaker is keeping at 7. Has turn 2 Blood Knight Countess, Zulurvites to be able to tutor for something like an Arcologize if need be. Pretty good, and Epic of Jabaya is just the nut versus Zarepath's deck. Zarepath keeping at 6, probably hoping to go turn 1 Shrieking Affliction, turn 2 Lazar's Altar, turn 3 Eli, and that's just like a really good curve. Unfortunately, FrogMaker does have Epic of Jabaya for Shrieking Affliction and Lazar's Altar. Assuming that FrogMaker does only have 2 lands, so getting to 5 lands might be a bit of a trial. Essence Scatter is also really good here. So I think if you're Zarepath, do you just play Shrieking Affliction here and then hold up Essence Scatter, or do you just go aggressive with the Altar? And FrogMaker hitting the 3rd land, definitely what FrogMaker wants to see. Unfortunately, because FrogMaker playing the Eerie Bayou and passing. I was about to say that FrogMaker can play the Blood Knight Countess and get under the Essence Scatter, but by playing the tap land and then not playing Blood Knight Countess, they're actually opening themselves up to being hit by Essence Scatter next turn. I don't know why FrogMaker would do that. I really don't, because I feel like there's like maybe like Zula of Rights for like an Arcologize next turn to be able to kill Shrieking Affliction. But yeah, I don't know what play on 3 or like Epic of Jabaya X equals 1. Yeah, I still don't know what play they would have. But yeah, Zarepath's gonna play Flooded Bog, hold up the Essence Scatter, top deck Despice. So probably next turn they can play Despice plus Essence Scatter. I almost feel like at that point though, next turn you just tap out for Eli, and FrogMaker doesn't have any hasty threats, and Eli can just like start going off. So FrogMaker is going to tap 2 for Blood Knight Countess. Unfortunately, this will get countered by Essence Scatter. Yep. And that's why FrogMaker should have played the Forest last turn and just played Blood Knight. We know Zarepath is going to tap out for Eli. Really no reason not to. And then next turn can Despice and then hold up an out of date. Can also alter and Despice. I think alter plus Despice really gets Zarepath far, because then you start drawing into so much more cards than FrogMaker. FrogMaker does have Zula of Rights. Probably going to Zula of Rights Arcologize on Eli. Yeah, Zula of Rights Arcologize on Eli. Yeah, having these Bog Rebirths stuck in hand really sucks. I think that Bog Rebirths are actually a really bad card. They're super low impact and don't do anything unless you already have a board presence. If they germinated, even if the creature didn't die this turn, I think they would have like some niche use. But without that, they're just awful. So Zarepath top deck to land. What this does allow for is this allows Zarepath to play Lazer's Altar, play Despice, and have out of date up. So, oh, actually no, sorry, because the land that Zarepath top decked is Forlorn Ruin. So that requires Zarepath to pay a mana for it to come in untapped. So Despicing FrogMaker. The only legal target is Whoopip Wander, so it just has to grab that. And then, now that you know that, do you play Lazer's Altar, knowing that, I guess, yeah, okay, Zarepath's like, I have at least 2 turns in which FrogMaker, or at least, FrogMaker can't kill both Lazer's Altar and Shrieking Affliction unless FrogMaker waits 2 turns and top decks 2 lands. I think if you are FrogMaker here though, you just Epic of Jabaya X equals 1, shoot the Lazer's Altar. Yeah, don't let Zarepath untap with that. But yeah, FrogMaker's hand of Bog Rebirth, Oracle's Boy is just looking real sus. An Epic of Inishtu. Yeah, just tap out Epic of Inishtu X equals 3, and then just make FrogMaker discard his entire hand. And then now Shrieking Affliction is online. Yup. And Zarepath has removal for FrogMaker's creatures if FrogMaker ever hits one. So Shrieking Affliction drains FrogMaker for 3. This is the deck's plan. Yep. And FrogMaker just hits a land. I think if you're FrogMaker, you just keep that. Because if you hit another land next turn, you want to be able to hold both up so you stop taking damage from Shrieking Affliction. But no, a FrogMaker's just going to play it. I think that's it. Yeah, I definitely think that was a mistake. There's no impetus to play the Swamp at that point. Oh, and Zarepath draw. I think the thing is, all of this removal just means that Zarepath doesn't need to have a threat as long as Shrieking Affliction exists. So FrogMaker is going to play Whoopip Bruiser, and then Germinate and create a Sapperling. Definitely difficult for Zarepath to deal with, because Zarepath is going to get
because FrogMaker's going to get a sapling. On end, probably out of dates. Oh no, do you just banish the Woopip Bruiser? Maybe out of date the sapling and then banish the Woopip Bruiser? No, okay, he's going to out of date the Woopip Bruiser. And I guess just not care about the sapling. Oh, the top deck altar. And now Zarepath, see, altar is so good in controlling shells because you can just keep drawing answers before they can have anything. Contravolt Magic is really scary though, because it lets FrogMaker get something back from the grave. Probably do you get Epic of Jabaya here, so that you can Epic of Jabaya the altar plus Shrieking Affliction? Yeah, I think if you're FrogMaker you do that. Tap out. Oh, it's 6 mana. So it doesn't actually have the mana to play Contravolt Magic. I thought it was 5 mana for some reason. Oh, and Zarepath didn't need to banish it because Zarepath had the bullet for the sapling. So I completely forgot that Eli got to create a token there. But yeah, FrogMaker will get a pedal. So next turn he is able to play the Contravolt Magic. And another out of date. Yeah, on upkeep, FrogMaker takes another 3. Razorvine Abomination, that's a threat. I think if you're a FrogMaker though, you play Contravolt Magic and grab back the Epic of Jabaya to be able to kill Altar plus Shrieking Affliction. Because if you let Zarepath keep those on board, you just lose. But no, is tapping 2 for Razorvine? I think that's a huge mistake. Like, maybe FrogMaker's trying to... Oh no, I guess... Never mind, because you can Inspirit onto Razorvine Abomination. Never mind. Completely forgot about that. So, only has to pay 4 mana. And FrogMaker gets to keep the Razorvine Abomination, even if Contravolt Magic is removed. Yep, grabbing back Epic of Jabaya. So I think on Zarepath's turn, probably banish the Contra and then out of date the Razorvine, or some variation of that. Oh yeah, sorry. On end step, gonna out of date the Contra, and then next turn banish the Razorvine. Gets an extra draw for the Lazarus Altar. Sick Nick. This is perfect because then if you're Zarepath, you just play Sick Nick, use the -2 to grab Epic of Jabaya. Yep. And because you're already breaking parity with Lazarus Altar, you don't want to draw Zarepath any cards. Or you don't want to draw FrogMaker any cards. And Epic of Jabaya lets you keep the lock of Affliction plus Altar. And yep, only thing in hand is the Epic of Jabaya that FrogMaker recurred last turn. And then I think you just banish the Razorvine Abomination. No reason to let it stay around. Yep. Banishes the Razorvine. Has one other copy in deck. So you're not exactly thinning FrogMaker's threat density that much, but still a good hit. See, FrogMaker is on 3 turns to live. Acidic Slime is good. I think do Acidic Slime the Altar or Shrieking Affliction? I feel like you Acidic Slime Shrieking Affliction because that's the one that's killing you. Yep, kill Shrieking Affliction. That's good because now Zarepath needs can point Altar at FrogMaker, but then that's kind of risky because FrogMaker is at 5 life and can like stabilize. So Zarepath's just gonna hope to draw into removal, and that's an out of date. So that is removal. So you can just kill the Acidic Slime and then hope to like top deck into something actually relevant. Yep. And yeah, no reason to let FrogMaker untap there because FrogMaker could hit like a Bog Rebirth. And FrogMaker top decks land. This time keeps it in hand wisely. Hits another land, but then with a normal draw hits a Corporate Confidant. That's a clock. Also, Zarepath is now drawing 3 cards per turn, so we'll have like so many answers. Whoopit Bruiser does kill Corporate Confidant here, though, and creates a Sapperling. Yep, and then you can just drain the Corporate Confidant because it only has 1 toughness. Yeah, I think it makes sense to like keep drawing cards, but also like I feel like draining Frogmaker out here is with Lazir's Altar is a perfectly valid win condition. So draws into another Corporate Confidant. Oh, that's a return Bokor. That's really scary because Frogmaker like snap and Spirit Sand into Whoopit Bruiser, and then Zarepath can't attack. No, but attacking with Whoopit Bruiser. Is Zarepath going to take the trade? No, it isn't going to. And I guess the reason for that is if Zarepath draws a way to kill the Sapperling, Zarepath's thought is kill the Sapperling, and then on the next turn, swing in with Corporate Confidant, and then can start drain. And then Lazir's Altar, when your opponent's on 2 life, Lazir's Altar looks like a lot better because then it's a 2-turn clock. Yeah, Return Bokor on the Whoopit Bruiser is definitely sketch. Requires Zarepath to have a banish, essentially. So Zarepath gets to draw 3 cards here, but also goes down 3 life. So it is kind of getting down to the wire. But right as I say Zarepath needs to draw a banish, draws a double banish and then a Masked Saboteur. So yeah, I think you banish the Return Bokor. The Corporate Confidant dies. Oh, and this is a hard choice. Do you banish the Sapperlings or do you banish the Whoopit Bruiser with the second banish? I actually think so I think okay, the line I think I would have done is attack in with Corporate Confidant. No, because then Frogmaker would just trade with the Sapperling. Okay, if Frogmaker didn't have like a Sapperling, then I think attacking with Corporate Confidant would have made sense because then Frogmaker is like, okay, I'll just block with my Return Bokor trade, and then I get Return Bokor back. Then Zarepath can despice the Return Bokor, and then have double banish, 1 banish for Whoopit Bruiser, 1 banish for the Sapperlings. Not this turn, obviously, because Zarepath only has... Oh, no, Zarepath has... Yeah, Zarepath has 9 mana. So it would have enough mana... Oh, no, wait, 1, 2, 3... No, sorry, I don't know how to count. Zarepath only has 8 mana, so wouldn't have been able to do it that turn. And so plays the first banish and then taps the other 2 for Masked Saboteur. And Frogmaker top decks a land. So what this does do is Frogmaker swings for 4 here. I think you don't block with anything. And then keeping a Sapperling up. Interesting. And Zarepath's going to trade with the Whoopit Bruiser. Interesting. Okay, so I guess trade with the Whoopit Bruiser and then banish the Sapperlings. And then hope to draw into another threat with the Lazir's Altar. Zarepath is running dangerously low on life here. Takes 1 from the Sapperling, takes another 1 next turn from the Altar, goes down to 7. Sick Nick, Notion Thief. Sick Nick is kind of a dice roll, but you can just yeet Frogmaker. So we're going to start by banishing the Sapperlings. Notion Thief is good, especially with Sick Nick plus Lazir's Altar, because then you can start pointing both Lazir's Altar and Sick Nick at Frogmaker, and essentially, or it doesn't count Sick Nick, but Notion Thief with Lazir's Altar basically says you lose 1 life, I draw 1 card and create a petal, which is insane. Zarepath despised Frogmaker, but didn't hit anything because Frogmaker only had 2 lands. Frogmaker instead top decks a Whoopit Bruiser. Man, I feel like Zarepath's like, man, I really should have just banished that Whoopit Bruiser. But yeah, FrogMaker gets a Whoopit Bruiser plus a Sapling. On end, Zarepath's going to flash in this Notion Thief. And now Zarepath can start draining FrogMaker out with this Lazaire's Altar with impunity. Yep, it drains FrogMaker for 1, creates a Petal, draws a card. So Mass Saboteur, Corporate Confidant, all good cards, because I think at this point you just flood the board with blockers. Sicknick is actually just really good, but I think Zarepath's afraid that he might accidentally kill himself with it. It seems far more likely to kill FrogMaker with it, though, because FrogMaker has like high CMC cards. I think Zarepath's CMC goes up to 4. So yeah, it's going to +1. Let's see what each player hits off of it. Both players hitting lands, so no one loses life. And then Masked Saboteur, and then Corporate Confidant. No reason not to. FrogMaker doesn't have wipes. So now has 2 blockers, one for the Whoopit Bruiser, one for the Sapling, and then has Notion Thief to be able to swing in next turn and kill. And hits into the Lion's Den. Yikes. Fortunately, Zarepath only has a Swamp. The problem is, FrogMaker knows this. If he'd been paying attention, because he knows that Zarepath drew a Swamp off of Sicknick. So that was definitely a blunder from FrogMaker. FrogMaker's definitely on the ropes here, because if they hit anything but a land off of Sicknick, FrogMaker loses. Because Zarepath swings out with all 3. FrogMaker blocks Corporate Confidant and Notion Thief, but takes 2 from Masked Saboteur. It goes down to 1 life. Oh no. Yeah, so Corporate Confidant does drain Zarepath for 2. Draws a card. So I think Zarepath can really just kill the Whoopit Bruiser and then swing out for a bunch. Okay, gonna +1 is Sicknick. FrogMaker hits a Whoopit Bruiser, gets drained for 4, and that's game. Zarepath on blue-black rack takes a 2-0 over FrogMaker on green-black Enchantocrats. I'm really excited to see this blue-black rack deck because it's not been played anywhere else before. The Enchantocrats deck is also super unique. It's an evolution of a Junt deck that FrogMaker played previously. It looks like it's a refined version of that. So both of these are completely new brews that we haven't seen before this tournament. So seeing how they play has been really cool. I'm excited to see how they continue to play throughout the rest of the tournament and beyond that into the rest of the net season. So until then, this is Caillou signing off.